Before I start the video, I just want to give a really big thank you for the support on the last video. It means so much to me, and it was really supposed to be this practice thing for me so I could get better at editing, but it got way more views than I thought it was. So thank you so much. I want to give a really big thank you to Raimundo. I love your videos, and you commenting under my first video meant so much to me, and it really inspired me to keep doing this. Again, thank you so much, guys. Let's move on to the actual video. Music isn't something artists just make just to make. It's a way for them to express an emotion, a story, or a message. Artists want to make their listener feel something. However, some artists can take things too far and create songs and albums that are meant to convey a much darker theme. Today's album being no exception to this. So let's look at the most disturbing album I could find on the internet. Music is a very vast spectrum, some genres of music not even sounding like songs or tunes. Some can even be sound collages, which today's album is, which I will explain later. Before I talk about the album, I think it's important to talk about the guy behind it. Born April 17, 1960, Peter Sotos was an American writer and musician who would explore sexual criminals usually from the perspective of the predator themselves. While attending the School of the Art Institute of Chicago, Peter began a magazine named Pure that was focused on serial killers and their stories. However, what made this magazine so different and controversial was how Peter would praise these killers in the text, commenting on how genius their plans were. The magazine would later lead to Peter's downfall, as on the second issue, Peter would use a photocopy of CP as one of the covers, causing Peter to be arrested on December 4th, 1985, and later pleading guilty on the account of the manufacturing and distributing of CP. Despite the legal trouble, Peter continued to explore the world of sexual predators, but in the form of sound collages, one of these being the album we're going to focus on today, named Buyer's Market. Released in 1992, Buyer's Market is a sound collage of parents, law enforcement, and victims of different sex crime cases. The album has 5 parts: Children, McMartin, Trash, Bundy, and Victims. The first part, Children, focuses on sex crimes where children were the victims. The most prominent and heart-wrenching part is found near the end of the segment, where a lady tells this young girl that it's the weekend and that she has to stay at her father's place. The girl begins to cry profusely, screaming that she is scared and doesn't want to go, presumably because the father has ate her during her stays.
You're not going away from your mother forever. It's just a weekend. Your daddy wants to see you. Okay? What? You don't want to see your daddy?
I don't want to.
He loves you.
I don't want to go.
And I really cannot talk about it.
Would you go if your mother took you to my office? Can you say any reasons why you don't want to go?
Because I had not been able to protect her.
The next segment is titled McMartin. McMartin follows the stories and interviews of children and parents who attended McMartin Preschool, a school whose trial gained national attention because of its hundreds of charges for the sexual assault of its many students. In one portion of the segment, a student goes into detail on what it was like to attend McMartin.
They said that if we told that the devil would come and kill our parents, and he said that we wouldn't live to be the age 9.
What does that mean? What does molesting you mean?
Touching us in places we don't want, and then they would threaten us oh, you don't say a word else we're gonna come to your house and kill everybody.
Another child recounts his story of seeing a newborn baby being thrown.
That's the baby right there.
Right here?
It came out of her already.
What'd they do to the baby?
Then David took it and kept throwing it against the wall, and he killed it, and he took it in the house.
No, you saw that?
Yeah. They took it in an old caboose. And they had these things they called spanes.
Spains?
Yes, spanes. They stuck it up my butt.
Who stuck it?
David.
Your dad?
Ow, did it hurt.
Shortly after, the next part begins, titled Trash, which combines many police interviews of women who are R-worded. Now, I'm not going to show you any clips from it, as they do go into a lot of detail, and not only is it really disturbing, but YouTube would probably get really mad at me, so let's just move on to the penultimate segment.
You, Theodore Robert Bundy, be adjudicated guilty of murder in the first degree, and that you be sentenced to death for the murder of Margaret Bowman. As to count 3 of the indictment, you, Theodore Robert Bundy, be adjudicated guilty of murder in the first degree, and that you be sentenced to death for the murder of Lisa Levy. It is further ordered that you, Theodore Robert Bundy, be taken by proper authority to the Florida State Prison, and there be kept and closely confined until the date of your execution is set. It is further ordered that on such scheduled date that you be put to death by a current of electricity sufficient to cause your immediate death, and such current of electricity shall continue to pass through your body until you are dead.
Ted Bundy, who is still considered one of America's worst killers, was responsible to countless lives lost. Bundy confessed to 30 murders, but he is estimated to have killed hundreds of young women during his spree. This segment of the album focuses on the grief of the parents due to their daughters being killed by Bundy.
I'd want to ask him why he killed my daughter and what he did with her, where he put her body. Having her body is extremely important. And 3 years ago, we did put a marker in for her. So we do have a headstone at the cemetery where we can take flowers and honor her, but there's still no body there. It's still an open book, so to speak. So I would hope with all my heart that Bundy confesses and tells us where the body is, that we might find it and have that peace of mind once and for all.
All I can think about is what he did to her, what were her thoughts, how long did she suffer.
You can tell these mothers and fathers are absolutely heartbroken. All they want is closure, something many of these parents haven't had to this day. Many only want to know where the body of their daughters are and don't even care about Bundy and his death. In this segment, we see a major switch in the album. At first, the album was about how cruel this world can be to children and how the people that should have loved and cared for them abuse that power. However, in the second half, the album switches. The album begins to focus on the real tragedy of this album to me. The parents and people who genuinely cared for these young sons and daughters, and their reactions are the saddest part of this album. The final portions, Victims, is about the true victims of these crimes. The parents. You think you have everything covered and that you're doing a good job, and all of a sudden it's taken away from you. Many of these parents thought that they were sending their kids somewhere safe, only for the ones they believed to be protecting their kids being the ones that caused it. I'm gonna leave you guys with what is, in my opinion, the saddest clip from the album, which I believe sums up the final segment pretty well. So if you enjoyed this video, leave a like, and if you want to see more videos like this, consider subscribing. Until next time.
We buried Debbie in a pink child's casket because she liked pink and she was a child. She was a little tomboy, you know. She liked to play with boys, climb trees. You know, she wasn't afraid of anything. You see there, she's got lipstick on, and I think she was in the 6th grade. She was just getting more out of the tomboy stage into the feminine. When I started finding out what was going on, it was too late because it'd been going on for a while. Debbie was going to Planned Parenthood and getting birth control pills when she was 11, 12 years old. I found out that she was smoking marijuana. I found out that boys were a lot more interested in her than just being friends. A lot of things that breaks a mother's heart. They arrested her for prostitution and didn't know who she was. She thought it was a game. I mean, that was fun for people not to know who she really is. She thought she was getting away with something. You think you're raising your kids normal, you know, you're doing everything right. And how she could get involved in something like that, you know, when she'd never been exposed to it, I couldn't understand it. I couldn't understand it at all. We looked for Debbie for 6 years. And when they found her, I just thank God they found her. I sat down at the funeral home for 3 hours telling her all the things that I tried to tell her when she was alive. If you have kids and they're out in the street, you better go get them. Because if you don't, you won't have them. And when they're dead, they're dead.